I'll call the meeting to order. Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd just like to request a motion to amend the agenda to include the swearing in of Chad and Bob Farrar, which would, we do have the introduction of Bob on number 2, but I'd like to add the swearing in of both Chad and Bob at the same time. Curry is prepared to do that.
So that'd be 2A.
What's that, Jim?
That'd be part of number 2?
Yes, it'd be part of number 2, yes.
Okay, so moved.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? I don't see any opposition or here, so we will amend the agenda to include the swearing in of Bob and Chad. So let's start the meeting by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you. So, welcome, Bob, as you've heard from others. Before you give your quick overview of your background, I just want to make sure that I extend a big thank you for Kate and her 6 years of serving on the council. I emailed Kate earlier in the week and thanked her. She was a great asset to the council and to the community, and she guarantees me she'll be staying involved. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob. Bob, you want to just give a brief synopsis of your history, and we'll move on to swearing you in.
I won't take up a lot of time. I know most of the folks on the council and most of the management folks, and lived here in Ward 5, where I am now the councilor of, for over 35 years. So I'm pretty familiar with how the ward functions, and I haven't been to too many of your council meetings over the last 4 or 5 years, but I pay attention to what's going on, and I think a lot of progress has been made, and I think the city's under pretty good management, and I hope to add to that, and with input and knowledge as we go through some of these issues that come up. So I don't think I'd be, I don't know for sure, but I probably won't say a lot tonight because it's mostly a learning experience for me. But as the weeks and months go by, I hope to be able to participate fully and have some valuable input. So I'm glad to be here, and thanks for all the welcomes from all the council members and administration, and also to Kate Lattison. Everything that I've heard, she's been a wonderful counselor, a wonderful older woman, and as you say, she intends to stay active, and off we go from there.
Thank you, Bob. Curry, how do you want to do? You want to do each individually, or can you do them together? What's your preference?
Sure. So there's 2 oaths, and I think they can say them together. Would that happen over Zoom? They can just say their names, or I can do them individually.
Chad,
actually, I may have to do them individually.
Okay, let's do them individually.
Okay.
All right.
Why don't we start?
Well, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, why don't we start with seniority? So we'll start with Chad first.
Sure. So we'll start with Chad. Congratulations on your re-election. Okay, so there's the Vermont Oath of Allegiance and the Oath of Office. So I'll find you here, Chad, so I can see you.
If I speak up, can you see me?
Oh, yes, there we go. All right. So Chad, if you would just, I'll read it briefly, the Vermont Oath of Allegiance, and you'll just put your name in there and repeat after me. So I, Chad Spooner.
I, Chad Spooner.
do solemnly swear that I will be true and faithful
do solemnly swear that I'll be true and faithful
to the state of Vermont,
to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not directly or indirectly
and that I will not directly or indirectly
do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution
you're going to have to repeat that, Curry. There's background noise here.
do any act or thing
Do any ask or thing
injurious to the Constitution or government
injurious to the Constitution or government
thereof.
thereof.
So help me God,
So help me God,
under the means and penalties of perjury.
under the means and penalties of perjury.
So that was your Vermont oath of allegiance, and here's your oath of office. I, Chad Spooner, do solemnly swear
I, Chad Spooner, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of
that I will faithfully execute the office of
City
Ward
Council
6.
Member, Ward 5.
Ward Council Member,
Perfect.
Ward 6,
I'm working off template, my apologies. For the state of Vermont,
for the state of Vermont,
will therein do equal right and justice
will therefore do equal right and justice
to all persons to the best of my judgment and ability,
to all persons to the best of my judgment and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
So help me God, under the pains of perjury and penalties.
You are officially sworn in, and I have your signature, and so everything is recorded at my office. We are ready for Bob.
Thank you, Chad. Bob, you're up.
I'm ready.
I, Robert Farrar,
I, Robert Farrar,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not directly or indirectly
and that I will not directly or indirectly
do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution
do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution
or government thereof.
or the government thereof.
So help me God, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
So help me God, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
That was your Vermont oath of allegiance, and now your oath of office.
Okay.
I, Robert Farrar,
I, Robert Farrar,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of City Council Member, Ward 5,
that I will faithfully execute the office of City Council Member, Ward 5,
for the state of Vermont,
for the state of Vermont,
and will therein do equal right and justice
and will therein do equal right and justice
to all persons to the best of my judgment and ability,
to all persons to the best of my judgment and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
So help me God, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
You are officially sworn in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Curry.
Thank you for all your patience as I went through that and used the technology as well.
Thanks.
Hey, Bob, I couldn't hear you. Can we do that again?
We're going to move on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the election of a council president. I would open the floor for nominations.
Make a motion that we nominate Chad Spooner to continue on as president of the council.
Second.
Okay, we have one nomination, Chad Spooner. Are there any other nominations?
I'd move that the nominations be closed.
Thank you, Michael. We have one nominee for council president. He has a little bit of history in this area. So all those in favor of electing Chad as council president, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposition? Chad, did you vote for yourself?
I think you ran away.
I'm going to abstain.
Chad's abstaining. Thank you, Chad. Thank you for running, Chad. So motion passes. Chad is confirmed as the council president.
Yay.
Congratulations, Chad. Moving on to item number 4, public comment. If there are any individuals who have public comment, please use the hand function on the Zoom. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes. And we prefer that your comments are on a topic that is not listed on the agenda that we'll be covering later in the meeting. So I think we have a few people looking for a raised hand, and if it's not the function, maybe even your actual hand, or just jump in. Anyone? Public comment? Okay.
Tim,
Yes.
I just wanted to just make a quick comment and thanks to the community for voting at town meeting day, and a special thank you to the election workers who are just consistently incredible and helpful and work long hours and are so professional. So I just wanted to thank everybody who worked the election and came out to vote last Tuesday.
Thank you, Curry. I would add to that your preparedness was excellent, and it appeared to have gone off. The election day seemed to go off without a hitch. So thank you for the time that you put in as well. We appreciate that. And I'd just like to say congrats to the council for getting all the items passed. I think a lot of effort went into those, and I thank you for that and the ability to pass those. So any other comments? Seeing none or hearing none, we're going to move on to item number 5, which is a presentation by Restorative Justice. And it's going to be led by Nina Curtis. Nina, I will let you introduce the folks that are with you from your staff, and we'll turn it over to you, Nina.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for inviting us to present. We're excited to be here with you. So I'm here today with the Restorative Justice Leadership Team, Harmony Borges, Courtney Whittemore, and Bo Twiggs. And we prepared a slideshow for you. I don't know if we could possibly, if I could get co-host
Chip
option, and I can share my screen. Does that sound okay for everyone? We have, I think our presentation is about 20 minutes, but maybe we'll finish in 15 and take some Q&A time. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and then I'll turn it over to Harmony, Courtney, and Bo. And Harmony, Courtney, and Bo, when you're up, if you could present, if you could share your title and as part of your presentation what you do. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the executive director of the Franklin Grand Dollar Restorative Justice Center, and I have been in this position for almost 9 years. So I'm happy to be here again with you. So I wanted to share with you all our mission statement. And I just want to make sure, can you see this? Do I need to move anything?
Oh, we can see it.
Okay. So in 2015, we merged the former Community Justice Center, St. Albans Community Justice Center, and the Franklin Grand Isle Court Diversion Program merged. So I'm going to talk about that a little later, but not in depth. I think most of you know about that. But I just wanted to remind you that our mission statement, or let you know that our mission statement is guided by restorative principles. The Franklin Grand Isle Restorative Justice Center creates opportunities for meaningful engagement in order to prevent and address harm and build a safe, inclusive community. And our values are accountability, fairness, respect, and compassion. Okay, can you see the bottom part in pink? Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is our continuum of services. I'm happy to send you all these slides as well. This is a little fuzzy, so I'm going to bring it up in a Google document. But at the bottom, you'll see that on average, we serve 1,500 unique individuals each year, a combination of both Franklin County and Grand Isle counties. But the majority is Franklin County. So if I pull up the continuum of services, I'm just going to go over it really briefly. Let's see if I can move this back over here. That's too bad. Oh, here, this is better. There we go. I was able to make it larger. So you'll see we have a whole range of services at our agency. We actually have one, and I'll point this out later, we have one of the biggest agencies in the state of Vermont. And we find that people often don't realize how many services we provide to the community. And they range from what we're calling here crime and conflict prevention, which is low-level, entry-level conflict. From part of our grants asks us to be conveners. So we provide around the state community forums on issues. We've been working for years with partners on truancy issues in Franklin County, which have only, gotten worse with our COVID pandemic. Schools and families are really suffering, and there's a lot of truancy. We are now working with partners in other counties to try to bring some more resources to this region around truancy. So the other is restorative practices in schools, which is an incredible project, really growing nationally. And that is looking at traditional school discipline versus restorative discipline. I could talk for hours about this one. I could talk for hours about all of it, but as a former teacher, I do love this one in particular. We have balanced and restorative justice, which Bo is going to talk about as Director of Youth Services. And that's an incredible partnership we have with DCF and working with at-risk youth. And in partnership also with our SROs and our other human service agencies. It's really an effective program. We do a lot of incredible work with youth through that program. Then we have the second column, pre-adjudication. We have Tamarack and court diversion, which Tamarack has changed legislatively every year a little bit, but it's kind of aligned with court diversion. So it's a referral program through our state's attorney. However, the unique feature of Tamarack is that it focuses mainly on crime where the main issues are around substance use and or mental health. Then we have Youth Substance Abuse Safety Program, which Bo will talk about more as part of the services through the youth department, and driving with license suspended for folks who don't have a legal license or have received criminal violations around driving without a legal license. So again, Harmony will talk more about that one. The next column is really looking at panels. We have reparative panels. As we do, we offer multiple panel opportunities every month, from reparative to court diversion to barge, both in Grand Isle and Franklin County. We have a safe driving program, and we have an extensive victim services service. We have a coordinator of victim services. She's at 29 hours a week. And honestly, she could be full-time. We're really proud of this program because working with victims of crime, affected parties is really central to restorative programs across the state and nationally. So the final column is really higher risk, high need offenses. And I'll let Courtney Whittemore talk about this. But we have COSA, we have transitional housing, we have community housing support, and One Stop. So that was sort of an overview. So I wanted just to point out a couple facts that Franklin Grand Isle was the first merged court diversion and community justice center office in Vermont. And we are one of the largest agencies in the state. And I'm really proud this community worked for 18 months. It was a deliberative process, involved invitation to stakeholders and community. We took it really slowly, and it's really my feeling, and I think it's unanimous that this has been an incredible, incredible change for the community, that it's now under one roof in terms of awareness of what we do and a centralized location for our services. So the other combined CJC and court diversion sites around the state of Vermont are Bennington, Lamoille, Addison, Orange, and Chittenden. And not all Chittenden happens to have 4 community justice centers. One of them is a combined agency like we are. Number 3, there is a community justice center and a diversion representation in every county, many of them as part of municipalities like we are. Number 4, approximately 10 to 20% of all court cases are diverted to a restorative program in the state of Vermont. I think that's something that people don't realize. So it does vary. It's approximately 10% if it's just court diversion, and if you put barge and reparative panel, it's upwards of 20%. Number 5, restorative programs have been in Vermont collectively for over 40 years. I think another little known fact, it's been around for a very, very long time. It started with court diversion as a legislative mandate for youth programs, and then it slowly moved to adult programs and then to community justice center model. Number 6, Vermont is a recognized national leader in restorative justice. Other states that have really active programs are California, Minnesota, Colorado, New York, North Carolina, and Florida. But it's growing. I mean, it's rapidly growing. Number 7, restorative justice has partnered with and been shown to be effective also in schools, hospitals, municipalities, policing, and instances of sexual and domestic violence. There are cities in different parts of the world, Hull and Leeds in England, Halifax, where whole municipalities are run, with restorative practices and principles. I find that really interesting. 8, national data shows that an average of 8% reduction in recidivism, especially for youth, from restorative practices. Number 9, Vermont Law School is the home of a newly federally funded National Center for Restorative Justice and a master's degree in restorative justice. So we're really proud of that. The state of Vermont should be incredibly proud that a national center is located here in Vermont. And we serve both counties, and we do that with your support. So we really are deeply grateful to City Council, to the mayor, to the clerk, city manager, and team, because you support what we do. We're not just serving the city, we're serving 2 counties, and we're appreciative of your support of our programs. So really quickly, I just want to look at the time. Okay. Well, I may not have time to go over this, but I want to give you the slides. It's kind of a comparison of the criminal justice system, retributive justice, and versus restorative justice as we look at the criminal justice system. But I worry about time, and I want the other team members to be able to present. So I am going to show you just a short video. This is a great overview of restorative justice, and then I'll turn it over.
When a crime is committed, people are hurt, no matter what kind of crime. Theft, vandalism, break and enter, harassment, intimidation, armed robbery, physical assault, homicide. Every situation is unique, but that doesn't mean you're alone. Restorative justice can help. Restorative justice is an approach that focuses on addressing the harm caused by crime, meaningful accountability, and meeting the needs of the people involved through safe and voluntary dialogue. Restorative justice processes provide a safe way for victims, offenders, community members, and others affected by a crime to talk about what happened. Victims can explain how the crime affected them and ask questions like, how did this happen? Why me? Is it going to happen again? What's going to happen to the person who did this to me? How do I go on from here? Often, offenders wonder, what can I do to repair the harm? How can I make things better? What does the victim need from me? The process helps offenders understand how others were affected by their actions and take responsibility for those actions, for the harm they caused, and for repairing that harm. RJ processes are voluntary, inclusive, and flexible. They can take different forms and offer different levels of involvement. These processes are guided by a skilled facilitator who will create and maintain a safe, sensitive, and respectful environment for participants to communicate in an open and honest way. People who have participated in a restorative justice process have experienced reparation, recognition, understanding, empowerment, improvements in health and well-being, positive change, and forward movement.
I expected to be repulsed by a pathetic attempt to say sorry. I hoped to find a young man recovering and taking full responsibility for what he did. I received more than I could have wished for when I came to realize that he truly wanted to take back his actions.
I found the experience good. It made me look at the effects of my crime towards the victims and how it made them feel. I have a true understanding that my actions do cause harm and have long-term effects for the victim.
There are hundreds of RJ programs across the country, and thousands of criminal cases go through these programs every year. Visit CSC-
Okay, thank you. Now I'll turn it over to Bo Twiggs, who is the director of our Youth Services Department.
Thanks so much, Nina. So it's a real pleasure to join you folks. I'll start by echoing Nina's words of appreciation to the city and to the council, and also to the people of St. Albans for their support and the opportunity for us not only to serve the city of St. Albans, but the wider communities. We really are proud to be a part of the city of St. Albans and really enjoy being a department. So as Nina touched on a few minutes ago, the youth department consists of a few different programs. The Balanced and Restorative Justice Program, or BARGE, which is a partnership between our agency and DCF. In operating this program, we work closely with the St. Albans DCF office, as well as other youth justice and community partner stakeholders in the community. Work with youth who are at risk of or currently involved with the juvenile justice system. We also oversee the juvenile court diversion program. That's part of our larger court diversion work, where we work with folks who are involved in the court system, but are diverted and have an opportunity to complete a restorative process instead of their case proceeding through the normal court process. Additionally, we operate the Youth Substance Awareness and Safety Program. This is a civil diversion program for possession of cannabis and alcohol and some low levels of cannabis distribution. So essentially through those three programs, we're proud to be operating at all spaces of risk of current juvenile justice involvement or youth who are working their way out of juvenile justice involvement and reintegrating into their schools, communities, families, etc. As all of you know, it's been a challenging year. A lot of our operations have occurred remotely, but a big theme that I want to hit on in my conversation with you all tonight is that I feel really proud of the work that we've done in overcoming barriers to engagement. Despite remote operations, we've continued to connect with youth and their families through restorative processes, so restorative panels and restorative circles under both the Balance and Restorative Justice and Juvenile Court Diversion grants at a pretty high rate, and I'd like to think a pretty high level of quality despite operating remotely. So that stands out to me as a really strong accomplishment in terms of our continued ability to serve the people of this community and the surrounding communities, and something that seemed quite daunting at the beginning of this period of the pandemic, but I'm really proud of how the team and also how youth and families have responded and continue to get together, have conversations, incorporating both responsible and impacted parties in some sometimes difficult dialogue around who has been harmed and what needs to take place for that harm to be repaired and for things to move forward in a positive way. In addition, I'll shine a light on how we've been able to operate and really grow our skill building class sessions during the pandemic period. In reviewing the data today, I'm seeing that actually we've done more work in this space through the first 3 quarters of the current fiscal year than we did in the previous fiscal year, which is something that I'm tremendously proud of. And during this period of remote operations, there have been times where we've had more opportunity as a team to dive into staff development, get training around new topic areas, and then in turn we've incorporated those into new skills class offerings. So I feel really good about that. Again, we're doing our best to make the most of a really challenging time, and I feel proud of the way that we've been able to show up for youth, families, and the community during this period. Since we're a little bit short on time, I'll skip the success story, but just give you a brief sort of taste of it. We were able to work with Ryan, who's 17, and weren't able to connect with him as much as we were previously, but we're still able to give him some job coaching, help him transition into employment, and he's been working successfully through this period. So even though we're needing to work a little bit differently with people, I think we're still able to connect in really positive, impactful ways.
Thank you, Bo. I'm now going to turn it over to Courtney Whittemore, who's our Director of Reentry Services.
Hi guys, it's nice to see and virtually meet you all. So I'm just gonna kind of quickly run through some of our reentry services that our organization is offering. I had written this whole thing out in terms of kind of the challenges and our accomplishments over the past year due to COVID, but I think it makes more sense just to kind of highlight each program and what we do and who we serve and how well we're doing it. So our COSA program, our Circles of Support and Accountability, it works with offenders that are transitioning out of incarceration, and it pairs this core member with 3 community volunteer members, and provides a pro-social and supportive environment for them to transition into our community. So it works with them on dealing with things of anger, on issues in regards to shame for their crime, holding them accountable to their crime, and making sure that they know that they have community members who support them in their transition back into the community. Currently, right now, we have 5 active COSAs running with 3 volunteers on each, so 15 volunteers that are active right now. The Department of Corrections asked that we do about 4 to 6 a year, so we're right there in our wheelhouse, and we actually have a couple of referrals coming through to round out our fiscal year. So our COSA support is a very strong and intensive program, but it really does pan out with some amazing results for our participants. Another area to highlight is our transitional housing and community housing program. At the beginning of the pandemic, the Department of Corrections decided that our transitional housing program was an essential service. So we were still expected to maintain a congregate housing service for 10 men that live with us, that have come out of jail, work with us every single day. And so staff was on site every day trying to support these individuals in anything that they may need. So linking up with doctors, with counselors, with therapists, with jobs, with savings programs. So we have been working with these individuals and been able to keep them out of jail during this kind of high intense, stressful period. This is for individuals who often have high risk, high need crimes. So these are individuals with domestic assaults, homicide charges, sexual assaults, and a variety of other charges. So these are pretty high risk individuals that we're able to maintain in our community. Also, we were able to expand part of our housing program, and we were able to get funding from the state to expand our position within the housing and be able to do outreach into the community. So our housing caseworker goes into the hotels and motels and works with individuals that are homeless in our community, help them transition out of the hotels into independent living situations. We've had a lot of success with this, and as some of you may or may not know, we have about 100 and I think when I last looked, 110 individuals that are homeless that are residing in our hotels within Franklin, Grand Isle County. A good chunk of those are under supervision. And so therefore being able to do this outreach service is essential in stabilizing members of our community. Last, and I'm sorry, I'm speeding through this. I just want to make sure Harmony gets her time too. But last is our one-stop and vocational support program. And this is a program that primarily focuses on working with individuals that are under supervision through the Department of Correction and providing them with intensive and targeted vocational support. And this really, the intention is to help people not only find jobs, but maintain jobs, because we can get people jobs, but can they keep them? And so this program primarily focuses on advancing their vocational skills, their soft skills, maybe their educational skills as well, in order to support them in their independent living. And hopefully the intent is to reduce recidivism for all of our individuals that are in our program. So sorry, quick, fast, but I just want to make sure that Harmony also gets a chance to speak. So thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm going to turn it over to Harmony Bourgeois, who is the Director of Court Diversion, Pretrial Services and Operations. And that's our last presentation. We'll wrap up. Thank you, Harmony. We can't hear you, Harmony. I'm not sure if you're muted.
Sorry, yes, I was. I was just echoing kind of what Bo said. I'll make it brief because I know I'm short on time, but we're just super proud of how we've been able to continue this work through the pandemic, which has been very stressful for everybody, but we've continued to provide services and I think do it very well. So we are very, very proud of that. So I will just quickly, despite various challenges we have faced with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had multiple participants from each program successfully complete their cases. And additionally, we continue to see increase in victim participation. Victim participation can look differently for each case. So we've had cases in which the affected party meets with the panel and they share with the panel how the incident affected them with the support of Rhonda, our victim advocate. And in other cases, the victim advocate will read a statement that was written by the affected party and Rhonda, represent the affected party throughout the process. So this is exciting that we've had so much more victim participation because obviously it makes the process much, much more powerful. It's the true essence of restorative justice where crime is a violation of community, people, and relationships, right? And not just a violation of the law. So super proud of that. Victim participation has increased tenfold and we're very, very grateful for Rhonda's position. So another highlight for this process is the dedication of our volunteers. So we have numerous community members who help facilitate our panel process, and their commitment to this process and helping their communities is inspiring. We are very grateful to have such a strong group of volunteers at our center. I think total combined all programs is about 70 people. So that's pretty great. I will also skip the success stories just because we are short on time. But if you want to go to the next page, Nina, I can just highlight a few other things. We recently hired a new restorative case manager and merged the position of reparative panel and diversion into one. So Sarah joined our agency. She came to us with previous volunteer experience through the Burlington CJC. She is dedicated to the work, and she has proven to be an invaluable member of the team. She's just wonderful. So I'm very excited to see where she takes her position, because she's just doing such a great job. She also took the role of our volunteer coordinator at the agency. So we're excited about that as well. So Diversion and Pretrial Services team has recently been trained and will be implementing the use of Odyssey this month. I don't know if any of you heard, but Odyssey is the new filing system for the courts and state's attorneys statewide. It's a web-based computer system, allowing configuration to be accomplished centrally while still supporting both statewide and county-specific rules. So as of March 15th, anything that we file with the courts will have to be e-filed electronically through this file and serve system. Additionally, we have focused on creating and implementing several new policies and procedures within diversion and pretrial service programs. We continue with process improvement as required by our grants and strive to create policies that align with best practices always. I thought interesting just to mention current restitution collected July through now is $5,563.74. So that's pretty great. As I said, victim participation is up, and we love to see that. It's the heart of what we do. And then lastly, this past quarter, we have hired out for website design and development with Anna Nassat. Anna has worked on other CJC sites throughout Vermont. She's heavily involved with victim work. So we hope to have an active website for the agency completed by the end of May 2020, fingers crossed, but we're very excited about that as well. So thank you. And I know I rushed through it too, but I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you, Harmony. Thank you, everybody. I guess we're all set. I'm sorry, we're a little over time. So I don't know if you want to do questions or just email us, whatever you like.
Let's take a few questions if folks have them. We'll start with the council. Do any of the council folks have any questions for Nina or her staff? So Nina, I just want to thank you, Harmony, Courtney, and Bo for joining us tonight and educating us about this. I had a couple questions to start it off. One was, how many employees are you up to, Nina?
So we have 12 employees.
Okay. And then in your presentation, you had the I'll say four blocks of activities that you work on.
Mm-hmm. Is
there one that is more demanding of your time than the others, or is it fairly spaced out amongst those?
I think we'd all agree that every program is really busy. Would you all feel the same? Yeah, I feel it's all really busy. The difference with transitional housing is that it's really 24/7. Courtney and her team, there's 4 members of that team, they're responsible for the members, the participants, and Courtney will tell you she gets calls afternoon, evening, weekend, and it's very demanding. But every program is quite busy.
Thank you. Council?
I have a couple questions, Tim, but I don't know. Do you want to take questions or do you want to email them?
Oh, Chad, go ahead.
Okay. Nina, again, I'll echo the thank you to you and your team. But how many schools do you work with currently? I can't believe you work with everyone in both counties.
No, we don't. Currently, last year we were in 6 Franklin County schools. This year, because of COVID, we're in fewer, but we're in Highgate, Bakersfield, Berkshire, and a little bit Enosburg as well, and a little bit Richford, but primarily this year in Franklin, and no schools currently in Grand Isle County. So this year it's just 3 schools down from 6 last year, but I suspect it'll go back up when we have, when it's a little more normal and kids are back in school. So,
okay. Do you get referrals directly from the PD, or do they got to go through the state's attorney's office?
So unique to our county and our region, this is a state's attorney at the discretion of the state's attorney. We do not have direct referrals from police to our agency. Every other county, every other program in the state of Vermont does receive direct referrals for reparative panel through their regional police office.
Okay. And that's the state's attorney that has made that decision?
Yeah, it's the discretion of the state's attorney. However, that being said, we, Chief Lamoth and I and Lieutenant Talley are working together on a pilot, and we're working together with State's Attorney Hughes to pilot this in Franklin County on very small level, just to see how it goes. So there is forward movement there, and we're excited about that.
Okay, thank you. Are you predicting any increase in funding? And what I'm thinking about is maybe in the youth substance abuse. I'm going to assume that the YRBS data, when that comes out, is going to show an increase. And I'm also wondering, probably we've released many non-violent offenders in the prison. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm assuming with some of the COVID outbreaks that they have released some other prisoners. Are you expecting any increase in the future in funding?
Increase in funding? No, but I do expect an increase in referral. Bo, if you'd like to talk about that, or Courtney, I know with the Justice Reinvestment Act, they're really changing the way in which probation and parole officers and district offices manage their clients. And a lot is being done in the community as opposed to in facility or in historical ways in which offenses had been responded to. So I suspect I'm going to turn it over to Bo and Courtney if they have any other comments about that.
Sure, I can touch on the Youth Substance Awareness and Safety Program briefly. I think at this point we're not anticipating any immediate increase in funding. That we're hopeful that the legislature will find space for that. It sounds like funds are going to at least remain flat, which is better than what was discussed at one point at the height of the pandemic. In terms of referrals, things are looking pretty steady in that program right now. Though, you know, to your point, I think as things start to come back to normal in a variety of different ways, we're going to start to uncover some issues that folks might have developed or might be having, but we're not yet aware of. So I would imagine that we may see an uptake as we move through the summer and the fall. And a lot of that program's traffic revolves around parties. So as young people are able to gather more freely, and people may be in understandably celebratory mood that we want them to celebrate legally and safely, as things reopen, you know, I think we may see more traffic in that program.
Chad, I will say thank you, Bo. In the 9 years I've been in this position, I have noticed a trend that is echoed around the state of Vermont, and that is more serious crimes are being referred to court diversion programs and reparative panel than had been when I started 9 years ago.
Thank you, Nina and Bo. Chad, did you have any other questions, or are you set?
I got one more quick question. Is there benefits similar to what we see with benefits cliffs in your program? So when they max out, when someone maxes out their sentence or whatever they've been deemed, you know, 3 years and 2 years probation, when they get to the end of their probational period, and does like their housing, the funding that they have for some of their housing, does all that end? The support through COSAs, all that?
So Courtney, I'll let you take that one.
So I would say it definitely slows down, but in our program, what we do try to write into all of our grants is that we also try to write in a history of incarceration in order to be able to capture those individuals and still provide at least a basic level of case management services. I can definitely promise you I have many, many people who have maxed out that still have my cell phone number and call me regularly for supports. And we just kind of, in terms of our grant funding, try to add that wording in so that we can continue to provide services, because we understand that those struggles don't end when their probationary or their furlough period ends. So our services are technically always available for individuals that need it. So
yeah, that's all I have, Tim. Thank you all. You guys do great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Any other council folks?
I have a quick one. Nina, thank you all so much for the work that you do. I had volunteered with the CJC in the past before things were combined, and I took on more jobs, but it made me wonder how COVID has impacted your need for volunteers and the volunteers that are available, you know, and sort of if you're still able to get the support that you need right now, and, you know, if we can help you put out the word for that.
I don't know if anyone wants to take that. I mean, we're always looking for volunteers. We love our volunteers. We know that you've been a volunteer. We appreciate that. And the door is always open, Mike, for you to come back when you have time. But I would say, yes, we are always looking for volunteers. We're continually recruiting, whether it's for panel or for COSA. So yes, any way you'd like to help with that, we'd appreciate it.
I will also add, it has been a little bit challenging because we did have to kind of teach everyone and provide everyone with systems and ways to do our volunteer methods online, which was new for a lot of our volunteers. And we did have some volunteers that just felt more comfortable doing the work in person or struggled with the technology aspect of it. So there were some individuals that didn't necessarily, they're still on our on hold list, but they'd like to do it more when things go back to normal. So we did have some volunteers that the modality just didn't work for what they wanted to do. So there was a slight downtick in that area. But come on back, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. That's true. Yep.
Anyone else?
Question if floor is open. And
yeah, go ahead, Bob.
And the question is, it used to be that in terms of court diversion, if a person had a contract and didn't complete the contract, they were, of course, referred back to the court, and you only got one bite out of the court diversion apple, so to speak. Is that still the case, and does that apply to any of the other programs that you folks have?
Harmony, would you like to take this? Thank you.
Sure. I will say that people have to be willing to engage, right? We try to support them as much as we can. Unfortunately, we do have to return people sometimes. And sometimes I will say that that's enough kick to them to realize they need to take it seriously. If we have had conversations then with the state's attorneys and the public defenders, and if we feel and collectively feel that this person is going to come back to the process and engage successfully and really commit to it, we will take them back and work with them. And we've had a lot of success that way, to be honest. So.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim or Marie, anything? Tim? Hearing none. Nina, I have one last question for you. Obviously, you work with Department of Corrections and the state's attorney's office. Do you want to give a shout out to some of the other partners that you work closely with? St. Albans Police, I'm sure, but others.
Absolutely, work with St. Albans Police and every police and sheriff unit in Franklin Grandal counties, with DCF and NCSS and Voices Against Violence and Samaritan House and Howard Center and the hospital and Phoenix House and who am I missing? CVOEO, help me, team. The schools, who am I forgetting?
Caring Communities partners.
Caring Communities, love them. Just, we really work with everybody. Yeah,
so,
public defenders. Yeah.
No, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure people realize that how extensive the network is, that it's not just restorative justice, the courts and the police departments. So
Voc Rehab, Weber,
yeah.
Probation and Parole, Economic Services, all of the above.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing no more questions, I want to thank you, Nina, and your team for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was great presentation, and I'm sure we all learned from it. So thank you, and let us know if there's anything we can help with.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Nina. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. So we'll move on to item number 6, which is extraterritorial allocation for Barry Calabo and their application that you all received in your packet. I guess I'm going to turn that over to Dom. Is that the right person?
No, Peter Cross, but I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Peter, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. So Barry Calabo wants to construct their second expansion in the past 4 years at their plant in the Town Industrial Park. This expansion will be an office addition of about 4,000 square feet plus renovation of their existing offices. And within a couple years or so, the construction of 2 additional receiving bays for the tankers full of chocolate that come into the plant. So this will create additional jobs, approximately 38, and they need an additional water and sewer allocation for those 38 new positions. So we are requesting tonight an additional allocation for water and sewer of 570 gallons a day, which is about 1.25 EUs.
Motion to approve the allocation.
That was Tim.
I'll second it.
Tim makes a motion, Mike seconds it. Any questions for Peter by the council?
Peter, quick question. Is that 38 jobs for just this 4,000 square foot expansion, or does that include the one in a few years as well?
There are no additional jobs attached to the project in a couple of years. This is all due to the office expansion. The office expansion is due to the new jobs, really is what's happening. They have to have a place to put these people.
Peter, can you give us an estimate of the capital investment that Barry Calabo has made in the region over the last 4 years?
Well, the project we did in 2017 was a $5 million project. And this one that we're currently working on is about $3 million for the office expansion and renovation. And I'm guessing maybe another $1.5 million for the receiving bays. So that's, it's pushing $10 million.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other questions or comments that anyone would like to make? Hearing none, all those in favor give a thumbs up. Got 3, 4, 5, 6. Any opposition? Thumbs up, thumbs down, actually. Seeing none, the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Have a good night.
Good night.
We'll move on to item number 7, renewal of the downtown program agreement with St. Albans for the Future, and Chip will be handling that discussion. Chip, are you with us? I'm guessing you are.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
The city and staff merged operations back in 2011 to have a more coordinated downtown program. At the time, we realized that the city needed to get more involved in public investments for downtown, and it would really become a defining factor of what St. Albans for the Future was doing at the same time. So we devised a situation where the staff board of directors is also the city downtown board appointed by the city council. And we created a merger contract that's based on the community reinvestment agreement that a municipality needs to sign whenever it gets its downtown designated or has to renew its downtown designation. So I included the downtown agreement in your packet. There are just some changes. Instead of development program, we call it a downtown program. Removed a couple element names from the old Main Street program that the state used to follow. that we don't anymore, but all the actual objectives and goals are still in there. Change the years, that sort of thing. And we're proposing that the renewal terms for another 3 years with another automatic 2-year extension, just like the past agreement. So the downtown board looked at this last month and approved it with these changes, and now it comes to the council. And if the council approves it, then we can get both the chair of St. Albans for the Future and the mayor to sign it.
Any questions? Go ahead, Chad.
I move that we renew the downtown program agreement with St. Albans for the Future.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Chad, seconded by Jim. Open up for any questions or comments. Does anyone have any? I did have one, Chad, or excuse me, Chip. So years ago when the downtown program started, you had multiple committees, right? You had the promotions, design, as it states here, economic, right?
Yeah.
So all of those go away, and it's just they're all being performed by the downtown program for the most part.
Well, they don't go away. It's the labels go away, but the those sorts of functions are still done by the members of the downtown board and other volunteers, mostly on an ad hoc basis. The most active one would be promotions,
right?
And it's sort of done as a combination between members of the downtown board that will meet about certain promotions and events, but also there's a merchant committee that meets once a month that discusses many of those things as well. We provide coordination that way.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Any from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor, give a thumbs up. Anyone's opposed, give a thumbs down. It appears that the yeas have it. So this has been approved. Chip, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item number 8, where we consider the appointment of Rob Green to the Northwest Regional Transportation Advisory Committee. Marty, do you want to?
Yeah, this is an appointment that we typically make. I'm not sure who the last member from the city was on that, but it's an important committee, and it's useful to have somebody from Public Works that's watching over our streets and everything to participate in that. Rob's got a tremendous amount of experience from Burlington and has volunteered to serve in that capacity.
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Mayor, I have been serving in this capacity for about a year. Ryan Doyle had been on the TAC previously, and it is a really great way for us to connect with folks from other communities. I think it'll really benefit from somebody with Rob's backgrounds being on there who can speak to some of these public works issues and see what other folks are doing, learn about grant opportunities that are coming so he can flag it for staff. And I really appreciate Rob stepping up because the time of these meetings tends to conflict with other duties that I have. So it's important for us to have a voice there, and I think he'll be great.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for serving on that. Marty, how much does this increase Rob's pay?
I think that's still to be negotiated.
Okay, all right. Let us know.
Not sure what they were paying Mike, but.
Mike, you don't have to reveal that if you don't want.
Don't disclose.
Anything times 0 is a 0, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, entertain a motion to appoint Rob.
So moved.
Motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Second by Chad. Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
How many years? Is this indefinite?
Lifetime.
Lifetime works for me.
Marty, is there a term limit, or Mike?
I think it's a yearly appointment.
Yeah, it's an annual appointment.
Okay, we'll amend that for a lifetime in the future. All right, so we have motion and a second. All those in favor, thumbs up or thumbs down? Seeing all thumbs up, motion passes. Thank you all. Marty, if you could extend a thank you to Rob for stepping up to that, that'd be greatly appreciated. We're now going to move to consider the appointment of Zach Noose to the Planning Commission and Luke Richter as an alternate. Chip, do you have anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, this is basically just a switcheroo. Luke Richter owns a law office in the city still, but he lives in Alberg now, so he's technically a non-resident member. Zach Noose, the newest member, is currently the alternate on the commission, but he does live in the city, and Luke's interested in dropping to the alternate seat and switching with Zach, giving Zach a full seat on the commission. So the recommendation is that if the council entertains this, you also allow both members to keep their current term expirations.
Okay. Entertain a motion to appoint Zach to the full-time planning and Luke to alternate.
Moved. So moved.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Chad. Any other questions of Chip?
Yeah, I have a question. It's showing here that his current term in the paragraph says 12/31/2020. This is Noose, but then when you list them, it says his current expiration is 12/31/2022. So are we appointing Zachary for 2022 or 2020?
So that's a typo. His current term ends in 2022.
So it'll be 12/31/2022. Okay, all right. I was just a point of clarification. Okay, thank you.
I didn't catch that. So Luke expires in 22?
No, Luke expires in 12/31/2021. Zachary expires in 12/31/2022.
Okay, that's what I had. Yeah. Okay. We had a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the motion, thumbs up. Anyone seeing all 6, 7 thumbs up? We will approve the appointment of Zach and Luke. And once again, Chip, express our thank you for their service. We appreciate that.
Will do.
Moving on to item number 10, which is consideration of certification of the annual highway financial plan. Is that you, Chip?
Yeah, that's me as well.
Can you, before you jump in, can you just give an overview for Bob's education about exactly what that is before you jump into it?
Yeah, it's every year VTrans likes every municipality to certify how much money they're raising for town highways from their own general tax funds, but also other sources. And there's a certain threshold you're supposed to meet, which the city has no trouble meeting every year. And also we include, actually this form also shows how much we get from the state, so it's useful for that. And then the different capital projects that we have and the capital funding that comes with those. It's important to us to do this form because it's required for a Class 2 paving grant that we're going to apply for later to try and help out with Congress Street. But basically we just assemble the numbers from the budget, from the grants that we get, the bonds, try and put them in the right place on the form, and then the expenses that we know of for the projects that are coming up for the year. And yeah, bring it before the City Council for approval.
Thank you. Chip, can you give one more clarification, and can you, this is probably as much for me as Bob, but I always lose track of the Class 1, 2, and 3s. Can you give a definition of each?
Class 1 road is a numbered state or US route that the city's taken over, in that we maintain it, we plow it, but the state actually still gives us funding for it, and the state also paves it around every 16 years. A class 2 road is would be a regular city street, but it's a city street that connects to numbered routes. So for instance, Congress Street is a class 2 road because it connects 104 with Route 7. And Upper Weldon is a actually 105 with Route 7. Upper Weldon is a class 2 road because it connects 104 with Route 7, for instance. Lower Newton Street is a class 2 road. No, actually, Lower Newton's a class 1. It's Route 38.
North Elm would be a class 2.
North Elm, Federal Street is a class 2. Yeah.
Congress.
Yep. And then the class 3 is everything else. Everything that's not just a goat path is a class 3. Everything, you know, some big city streets are class 3 streets, and then even the small ones like Sawyer Street or Stowell Street are class 3 streets.
Thank you, Chip.
Chip is trying to get Sawyer Street upgraded to a class 2.
Yeah, I want it to be US Route 9. Or, I don't know if that one's taken, but maybe whatever US route number isn't taken yet in the state.
So Chip, you're just looking for certification of your numbers?
Yeah.
And will we need to sign off on that? I believe we do, right?
I think on this one, I can mark that you approved. I can do the /S/ and just mark that you all approved it remotely. If they don't like that, then we'll probably make it available for you to sign or drive it around or something like that.
Entertain a motion to approve the certification as presented.
So
moved.
The thing about International Women's Day is exactly what's happening right here, which is
that Chad talking?
I said second.
Yeah, this is Mike. I think I moved and Chad seconded.
Okay. Any other questions for Chip? Hearing none. All those in favor, thumbs up. Chip, if you can take down that screen so I can see everyone.
All right.
No problem.
There you go.
You're testing me. Thumbs up, everyone. Thank you. Motion passes. We're moving on to, is that all we have for you, Chip?
I think so.
A light night for you.
I'll stick around.
Man, a few words to tonight.
So I'm going to touch on the mayor's report. Couple things. I got an email. Is Chief still on with us? And I don't see him, but we'll reach out. I received an email that it appears that truck traffic on Upper Weldon has sort of rebounded a little bit, and it's on the rise again. I thought we had sort of got control of that, but it appears that is not the case. Dom, can you have that conversation with Chief and just make him aware that we are getting complaints on that?
Can you forward me the email?
Sure. So that was one item I had. I wanted to thank, we have Northwest Access TV on with us tonight. I want to thank them for Election Day coverage. I thought they did a great job on the show from 8 to 10 o'clock that night. So thank you for that. I also had in the County Courier, there was an article regarding the pool, and Mr. Spooner had picked up on a comment that was made within the article that stated that if we had not passed the pool, then the local option tax would have been applied to reducing local taxes. So I took that to be property taxes. Chad and I spoke about it, talked to Dom a little bit. I have sent a letter to the editor of the County Courier, first of all, thanking them for their coverage of the pool and the discussions, but also asking them to take note that that discussion relative to if the pool did not pass, that it would not, the local option tax would not have gone towards the reduction of property taxes. It would be focused on infrastructure projects, as we had discussed many times. So that letter has been sent off. You'll see that. So if anyone comments to you about that, that was not the case. And Dom, I also, I talked to Dom briefly. I also had a complaint regarding ongoing odors from the wastewater plant, more so in the lower Newton residential area. So I think that's a conversation for Marty and Dom and staff to see if there's any remedies to that. I had heard the complaint in the past, but the one I received this week was, they stated that this is much worse than it had been in prior years. So Marty, if you can maybe do some homework on that and see what you can find out, that would be appreciated.
Yeah.
And I think, once again, just thanking the council for the work on all the bonds and getting them approved. I think Mr. Manahan wanted me to acknowledge that the water tower public works project was had the widest margin of victory. So he's taking credit for that.
I didn't realize that was the case.
I thought that's what you told me.
Oh, maybe in passing.
That's because I said there was going to be a throw the ball at the target, and it was going to dunk Marty in it.
That would explain it for sure.
That's why I voted for it.
But thank you for your work on that, Dom. Thank you for your work on pulling all that together, and staff. A lot of people are excited about the pool, so let's go around for other comments, questions, comments, concerns. So why don't we start with Marie? Marie, you're up.
Okay, well, I really don't have much to comment on this time. Everything seems pretty good for the time being. Happy to see that Spectrum opened today. I was hoping to get over there, but I didn't make it. But I think that's going to be a real plus for this community, and planning on doing some volunteering there myself. So very happy that that's on board, and wishing them well.
That it, Marie?
Yep.
Not that's it, but we did a story on the news this evening. The inside of Spectrum looked beautiful. It looked like they did a wonderful job.
Yes.
I know we can all pop in and welcome them, but Dom, do you know if they're doing an open house of any sort? Have you heard?
I believe the open house occurs at the Spectrum Sleep Out, which I hope we're all registered for. Sort of a open unhouse.
No, it's actually an open house.
Right. Okay, we'll move on to, thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Tim?
Good.
Anything to add, Tim?
None.
I think he said he was good.
I thought you would have a little extra to add since you missed us last month. No? Okay, let's move on to Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to say a couple of us, I think including you, Mr. Mayor, were participated in the St. Albans Museum's fundraiser last month, and it was really quite fun, and raised about $4,000 for them. And I think it's just great to have that asset in our community. Marty's crews with Public Works have really did an incredible job kind of keeping the sidewalks clear. And I know we had a couple of folks who were frustrated with the response given the repeat snows, but the overall condition of the sidewalks is just incredible. As somebody who walks a dog around, given the fact that we had some pretty difficult weather to deal with, and the drivers on the trucks and the plows have just been really courteous and great and watchful of pedestrians. And so I just really appreciate the professionalism there. And I know you've helped out respond to a couple of places where, you know, folks had a concern, and really appreciate that. Yeah, things are pretty good here. We're looking forward to some warmer weather though up in Ward 4.
I hear you. Just to add to that a little bit, I completed my water bill memo message, if you will, and it'll be out in a couple of weeks. But I think I shared in that one that I don't think a lot of people realize that Public Works is 9 people. And when you have a water break and you have a snowstorm at the same time, all of that needs to be covered. Obviously, both are priorities. And we've got a crew that responds and is professional and maintains a great attitude. And we're very fortunate from that perspective. So thank you for bringing that up, Mike. I definitely share that sentiment as well. So, and Marty, if you can pass on a thank you, that'd be great.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Jim?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our success in town meeting day has, we owe a lot, obviously, to you and Dom and the staff at City Hall too, for all your hard work getting this done. But I think more importantly, I think I'd like to thank the citizens of our fantastic community for coming out, for voting and having the faith in us to get this done. I think it's been demonstrated time and time again that they voted for things. We've got things done for them. They've seen the benefit of their affirmative vote, and I think they're giving us that faith again. So thank you for the citizens of St. Albans for approving this, so we can continue moving forward. It's all good.
Thank you, Jim. Well said. I would just to clarify, is it true that you won't cut your hair until a bond is defeated? Is that what I understood?
Yeah. My wife's screaming no.
She's a no vote.
She's the one that has to put it in a ponytail for me.
Thank you, Jim. Well said. Jack?
I just want to let folks know I had a friend that lives outside the area stopped in and up at Hardack visited the Greg Brown Lodge and wanted to say what an absolute wonderful facility. So again, more acknowledgement of you know how great of a building that is, and thank you to everyone that made that happen. Question for Dom. The west side of the hotel, that siding, more of it is starting to come off. Have they, I know, you know, we're in COVID times and I'm sure, you know, they're not doing so great financially, but have they talked about kind of time estimate on when they want to fix that?
I think it'll be fixed in the spring. It, there was it was a defective product. That's the issue. And they had to get it in. I believe it's being stored right now at a city facility. So yeah, they're just waiting for some reasonable weather to get up there in a lift.
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you. And then the last thing I just want to, I'm going to bring this up when we do our goals and objectives, but I just want to give you a fair warning now about looking into redistricting the wards. So just a heads up that that's going to come up. It was done in 1968, so that was 53 years ago. And I think during election time, when we look and see ward numbers, it consistently shows some wards have a lot more participation than others. So I don't know if that's participation or if that's number of voters. So just want to kind of look into that.
Can I follow up on that, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
So the committee I'm on in the legislature right now is gearing up for doing the legislative redistricting in the spring. And, you know, the census block numbers aren't really going to be available until September. And I really feel strongly the way Chad does that we, need to look at the numbers of folks that we think are in each neighborhood and make sure that we're evenly represented. That's been a long time. We should probably think about establishing a policy of, every 10 years doing a redistricting, and, we'll have some experience with the redistricting at the legislative level. And I kind of was thinking that we might consider doing something in the summer of 22, adopt it and then have it be effective for the elections for 23. It might be a good timeline to look at.
Mike, you bring up the census. What, I guess my comfort level on the numbers is not real high based on some of the things we saw and being COVID and everything else. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think what we're hearing is that the numbers are still going to be fairly good. That part of the delay is really about situations like if they got duplicate responses from people that should have been counted where they go to school rather than at their parents' home. And it's about data processing. It's certainly not going to be what you would have wanted it to be in terms of accuracy, but the actual 2020 census data isn't the only set of numbers we have. There's also the American Community Survey and a lot of statistical sampling. And we might want to look at, a rough estimate. I mean, we know that our ward boundaries now don't reflect the development that's happened over the last 50 years. And so, I think we could take a step in the direction of getting it to be much more of each one of the counselors representing an even number of population, even without 100% accurate 2020 census data.
Okay, thank you. Bob, I don't want to leave you out. Do you have any questions or?
Yeah, I do have one or two things, thanks. One is what you mentioned on your report about the Upper Weldon Street traffic. And a couple of people mentioned that to me on election day. So I'm wondering if at some point in the future we could have update on that from the chief or something like that. I understand it's a long, festering issue. It's hard to deal with, but I think the people in that Upper Weldon Street area would be interested in having a little more info. Not today, because I don't think we're ready, but at some point in time, I think it might be a good idea.
Okay, we can have that conversation for sure. I think what we had found with the truck traffic is it had made it on the GPS, the routing has made it on GPS because so many other vehicles are utilizing Upper Weldon as a bypass to avoid the lights on Fairfield and other areas. So yeah, maybe worth doing a traffic count.
A warning sign up there, so yeah.
Anything else, Bob?
Not really.
Okay. So just to Bob's comment too, Marty and I, Bob, and Bill Kimball from Supervisory Union are meeting on Lincoln Avenue. I see Eric Johnson was on earlier, but he has since gotten off. But he had shared some concerns back before Christmas relative to, I think, a number of things: speed, number of cars, congestion of cars parking on Lincoln Ave, and utilizing that back entrance to the high school. So Kate had organized sort of a visit so we can see, and Bob's picking up that that spot. So we're meeting at the high school on Lincoln Avenue tomorrow at 2:30. We've already been there back in early January to view the morning traffic, which was minimal to say the least, I think. So we're going to look at the after school and see what the outcome of that will be. So we should have more to report on that as well. The only other business I had was just remind everyone that we're doing our executive session at the end of the meeting. So once we get through the approval of minutes and warrants, and we also have the presentation of the financial statements, we will move to executive session after that. So let's move towards the approval of approving the meeting minutes from 2/8 and 3/3 special meeting.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of 2/8.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Jim. Any corrections, changes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Thumbs up.
Aye.
Attention.
Motion passes. Motion for special meeting 3/3.
Last one.
What? I'm sorry, Tim, I didn't hear you.
Get Ward 1 as an exemption.
Oh, okay.
Move to approve meeting minutes 3/3.
Second.
We have a motion for the special meeting on 3/3 by Chad, seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye or thumbs up. And I would recuse myself from that because I was unable to make that meeting. The motion passes. Warrants 228.
Move to approve the warrant at 2/28/21.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Chad. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, thumbs up or say aye. Thumbs up it is. Thank you all, and the approval of warrants has passed, or is approved, I should say. We now will turn the Zoom camera over to Alina Korsak from Melanson CPA regarding presentation of the FY20 financial statements. Is it Alina or Alina?
It's Alina.
Alina.
Close enough.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we prepared a brief PowerPoint, and Tom is gonna talk as well. So I'll start and he can intervene at any point. So this is gonna be to go over key financial data in your financial statements. And I'm gonna start sharing the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll first begin with the auditor relationship and the audit process. So as you guys know, we work with your management and we express an opinion on your financial statements. And the audit process, in summary, it just involves getting audit evidence about the amounts and disclosures in your financial statements. This is a financial statement audit, not an internal control examination. So I want to point out that we do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls. However, we do get an understanding of how the checks and balances work in the city, and we do test those transactions on a sample basis. GASB is the nationwide body that establishes the formal content of your financial statements, and they're the ones that issue standards to help you prepare your financial statements in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And if you heard anything about them, they've been really on fire lately. They've already issued up to GASB 897 for a statement. So just quick ones that coming up. 84 is not going to be a significant one for St. Albans to implement. You have only two small agency funds, the St. Albans for the Future and the Explorer Fund, the two local non-for-profits. I see one presented, there was one on the agenda today. So those two would really become custodial funds. So that's not major for you. And we already discussed that your 457 plan is self-directed by employees, so you don't want to have to put in on your financial statements. So not a major one for you, but 87 will be more of a task for the finance department. More advanced planning is going to be needed because master lease sheets are going to have to be prepared for lessee and lessor, meaning the city as a lessee and the city as a lessor, and evaluated whether there are any material amounts that need to be booked on the financial statements for those. And it's going to be one unified method of recording for leases. No longer capital versus operating leases, just one method. And I'll just go to the next slide for the reports that we issue. So the only thing in your CAFRA, the comprehensive annual financial report, that belongs to us is really the opinion. We don't issue an opinion though for the introductory section, MD&A, RSI, and that includes pension and general fund BBA schedules and statistical section. The 4 other reports we issue is the management letter, the governance letter, the TIF AUP report. The single audit report is still currently pending. It's not deadline for that yet, and we're still working on it. So I'll quickly go through some management letter comments that we issued. The first one is to implement regular department internal audits, and we recommend that to supplement your external independent audits to improve oversight of the departments. And the city did have a plan to do that. Due to COVID, it was delayed, and the city plans to do that once the in-office work restrictions get removed. The second one is to improve controls over system user rights. And you use NEMRIC for your financial management system, and it's not always easy to customize the rights there. It's usually either full access or no access, and it's not really based on individual roles in finance. So there are segregation of duties issues that are involved because of that. And we just wanted the city to evaluate options, consider additional mitigating controls. And there was a payroll third-party vendor that was hired from January 2020. So there were some additional mitigating controls coming from that. Particularly, there were email alerts that were enabled to everybody in finance if a pay rate get changed, for example. The third one was implement information technology policy. We just wanted that to be formal in writing. I mean, you guys heard about all kinds of cybersecurity and other issues that have been going on. So we recommended that that would be a formalized policy, and the city again planned to do that one just like the first one, but due to COVID, it just got a little bit delayed. But there were some mitigating controls that did get implemented. Really, the only thing is that is a current year comment and not just a repeat of prior is number 4. And before I mention that, I just want to point out that in the management letter, there are significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, or just other matters. So none of these are coded as significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. So all of these are just coded as other matters. So the current year recommendation is just an other matter. We just thought it should be important to put it in the management letter because it's for the first time ever the unassigned fund balance in general fund went negative. And really the comment is just to monitor departmental spending, fund deficits, and effect on external matters on general fund unassigned fund balance monthly. And as I mentioned, the unassigned went negative this year, which generated this comment. Mostly it's because of budget versus actual results. And primarily it was due to police overspending by $881,000. On a smaller scale, there were some capital project funds that didn't have the financing sources secured in the next fiscal year. And that was $346,000. And in the future, due to loss of police contract and the effect on budget, so we just wanted to make sure we point that out. And the city has been monitoring, so it's not that it wasn't monitored. We just wanted to point this out. And the city does have a policy. It's really a goal of 1 month of operating expenses, which would be about $680,000 for unassigned fund balance, but the city does look at it in light of other priorities like redevelopment, cash flow needs. So it's really just to try to balance it out and have, keep working on a strategic plan to get a balance of priorities and try to get that unassigned fund balance up.
And just to give a couple quick comments, could you go back one slide, Alina?
Of course.
So on the internal audits, one thing you struggle with as a small city, sort of controls 101 is that you should always have at least 2 people overseeing transactions. So we do that in terms of our controls. We have multiple people and segregation of duties, but sometimes we have one person in an office, the clerk, for example, for an extended period of time. So we're looking into beefing up some of our internal rules. Just to be a little stronger in that regard. And then user rights, the challenge with NEMRIC, our system, is it's all or nothing. You've either got access to the system or you don't. So our new payroll system, from that perspective, corrects it because myself and my staff, we've got full access to everything in the payroll system. And the chief needs full access to the police department, but he doesn't need to see social security numbers necessarily in payroll. He doesn't need to see quite everything we do. And the supervisors have access to their staff and they can do things like time off requests, but they don't they can't perform the transactions that we can in finance. So we've made a big stride there and moved payroll off of our older system. And then on the IT side, we have 2 consultants, one that serves police and dispatch and one that serves everything else. And I think they do a great job. But given everything that's evolving in this world, I think it's a good comment for us to beef things up a little more and make sure we're a little more formal about how we write it down and track it. And we have made an awful lot of IT investments the last few years. And I think it served us well. The biggest thing we probably did this year, it sounds simple, but with everyone working from home, you use your home computer to remote into your work computer. So recognizing the home PC is probably the weakest link in our system, everyone's home PC has got the city's antivirus software running on it. So it's got the real beefy commercial version of antivirus. So little things like that, I think we've done a good job on.
Take it down, that added great perspective to those. So we'll go to the CAFRA now. It starts with an introductory section, then it's auditor's opinion. And unmodified opinion just means we did not need any modifications that would make your financial statements to be in compliance with GAAP, the generally accepted accounting principles. Then following that is the MD&A, and that provides the reader with key financial highlights. And then following that, there are 2 sets of financial statements. There's the government-wide, which is on long-term perspective, which means on accrual basis. Following that is the fund. And fund, particularly for governmental funds, it's on short-term perspective, which means modified accrual basis. And then following those, there's notes. And after that, there is RSI. And because you do a CAFRA, and it is a great achievement to get that excellence certificate annually, because you add an introductory section, you add in supplementary information and statistical section to your basic financial statements. And that's what a CAFRA is. So you also have that SI and statistical section. And statistical section is helpful because you have multiple years of historical data if you ever wanted to look at that. Now we'll start with the actual numbers. So this is the unassigned fund balance for general fund. And this is just a chart of the last 4 years. So it's broken out because you have 2 redevelopment funds and operating. So here it's broken out by redevelopment and operating, but it's all one unassigned fund balance. So if you look at, say, the last 3 years for total amount, in 2018, it was 1.3 million. It was 1.2 million in 2019. And this is where it went into the negative this year. And there's a note at the bottom that says general fund unassigned fund balance at net deficit of 169,000 at 6/30/20. And as a percentage, you went from 16.8, 13.6, which are all good percentages, to -2. So that how it ended at 6/30. And to bring a little bit more of a perspective, this is a slide on total fund balance. So unassigned is just a component of general fund balance. There are 3. There is non-spendable, restricted, unassigned. 3 that St. Albans has. You could have more, but St. Albans has 3 components. The non-spendable, I mentioned earlier that 346,000 was hit to unassigned because of long-term deficits in capital project funds. And it's not unusual to have design and engineering costs in your capital project funds before you're securing any permanent funding. So it's not unusual, but there were 346,000 that gets offset by non-spendable. So without that 346,000, it would have been a slight positive. But of course, the biggest factor with going into the negative was the police overspending of 881,000.
One of the sort of strange paradoxes here is we've got really good cash flow. As of today, we're sitting on 3.6 million in cash. And so when we advance a capital project, we can afford to spend sometimes significant amounts of money to get to the voter approval stage. The water tower, for instance, has been going on for a few years. If we borrowed that money, ironically, the fund balance would be higher because we'd be offsetting that expense. We will borrow that money for these projects, but we'll just do it long-term through the bond bank. So it's this great paradox where I could actually cost the city more money by issuing short-term debt and not use our cash. But we don't do that because I'd rather have a hit on paper than a hit in real life.
And this is the general fund budget versus actual. And as I mentioned, that negative in expenditures is primarily the police overspending. So we'll go to the TIF, debt service fund. And here we are just showing the income statement for the last 3 years. And really the increment is property taxes and transfers in on your CAFRA, and then the debt service payments. 2018, it looks like it's the same amount, but there was a transfer there to make that fund balance at the end 0. So that then you look at 2019, there was a slight about 74,000, and you see because their debt service exceeded increment, it went into a negative. So at the end of 6/30/20, it was negative 174,000.
So the quick version of that, in 2019, the TIF made about $75,000. And that money stays in the TIF for the future. In 2020, the TIF lost a little bit of money for which we've got a working capital reserve to cover that. I shouldn't say lost. In 2020, we issued the debt for Congress in Maine, and it was not fully on the grand list until this year. And that's how TIFs work.
Thank you. Just a note here, because we were talking about general fund, which is a major fund. Then we talked about TIF fund, which is a major fund. We did have a new major fund in fiscal year 20. And as Tom just mentioned, it's Congress in Maine. It met the definition of being a major fund. So we showed it as a major fund. Although the negative fund balance is $2,572,000 at 6/30/20, it was partly covered by a line of credit of $1.25 million. And partly it's covered by future funding sources. One of those is the agreement that you had with the construction company and the affordable housing portion of the project, that $600,000 you guys received in fiscal year 20, and the 1.45 reimbursement for improvement costs was going to be given to you in fiscal year 21 when the COO was issued. So that would be what's covering that deficit shown in the CAFRA. The next 2 slides, we just wanted to go through the major funds on the business type activities and enterprise funds. So this is water fund, and here's what we have for unrestricted is the bottom portion of it. So it slightly went down, and then on the wastewater fund, it looks like unrestricted went up, but it was because of an intergovernmental revenue. So if you look at the income statement in the CAFRA, you got a grant and for I think $2.9 million. So that was the biggest reason why that unrestricted went to $3.3 million. And then we wanted to show a slide for Restorative Justice Center. You had them up in your agenda. And this is just shows that that activity can be up and down. So at the end of 6/30/20, it was a deficit of 22,000.
And just to elaborate on that a little bit, the goal has always been for restorative justice to manage to their bottom line, to effectively have a 0. So 5 years ago, they had a tiny deficit of less than $8,000, and then they had a big surplus. So we essentially lived off that for a few years. In 2020, they had a slight deficit at year end, but they've already corrected that because they've gotten some COVID grants that essentially drove the 2020 deficit, but they weren't eligible and didn't receive them until this year. So we expect this year they'll be back in a good position. So we don't necessarily have grave concern if they're a small amount in the red, given they're $1 million operation, but we make sure we correct it if they are going forward.
So the next slide is about your debt, long-term debt loans, leases. So these are like bonds from municipal bond banks, any notes, loans, and lease payments that you have. So from this chart, you can see that it has been going up. So it's broken out by governmental and business type. And business type, we mean water, wastewater, and stormwater. So you could see how it's an increase on both sides.
And that'll be up at the end of certainly FY22. We'll probably have closer to $55 million in debt, given what the voters approved and given the sidewalks approved last year. That debt is, the long-term debt has not been issued yet.
On the next slide, we are showing that pension liability. It's broken out by Beamers and City Plan. And here you could see how Beamers steadily increased the net pension liability of the city of St. Albans. That is a share of Beamers. And then you could see the city's plan, which is a closed plan now, but you see how that went from 2.4 to 2.7 to $3 million liability at 6/30/20.
And just to comment on the city's pension obligations here. So I'm sure you've read about the state's pension issues. VEMR's is not the state, it's just municipal entities. So VEMR's is actually in a pretty strong position. This net pension liability is essentially an actuarial number, and we've got to pay this off over decades and decades. So it's not like we've got to write a check for $2.6 million anytime soon. VEMR's has a funding plan that they've adopted where they're going to slowly increase the rates that both the city and the employees pay into it to try to get back to a higher funding percentage, but VEMR's is in strong shape. And then the city plan that we talk about every year, and this is new to Bob, but the city plan is an older plan, has been closed for quite a while. So the liability went up from 19 to 20, and that's because of one thing. On June 30th, the stock market wasn't a bad place. So we closed June 30th with about $3.7 million in assets in our pension plan. As of today, we've got about 4.1 million. And we have a rule we call the 60-40 rule, which is that our investments can hover between 60 and 40% in securities versus cash. So we've been at 60% in the stock market for a while. Just this past few weeks, we moved back down to essentially lock in our gains and de-risk a bit. So if we looked at it today, we'd be really comparable to 2019. Actually a little better off. The other piece about this, we don't make the accounting rules, and the accounting rules for pensions don't let us factor in future contributions. So every year for a long time, the city's been making a contribution into its plan of about $210,000. If we were able to factor that in, we've only got to earn a few percent on our investments, and we're basically fully funded. So the city's pension plan, I'm not going to give you an exact date, but at some point in the not too distant future, we'll be able to actually wind down our investment in that plan. So there's a liability on paper, but this is not something that keeps you up at night in any way.
And that was really the last slide we were gonna go through as a key financial highlight from your CAFRA. So I'll open it up for questions, turn it back to you.
Does anyone have any questions for Tom or Alina? Tom, thanks for educating us as we move through the presentation. Alina, thank you for your time. So does anyone on the council have any questions?
I just have a quick question of Tom, perhaps, based on what he just said. In the city plan, who's our financial manager or a broker for that? Do we have input regularly onto that city plan?
We do. We do have a professional financial advisor that we meet with regularly in that plan.
Okay.
And then the funds are invested through Prudential, which is a good deal for us because on our cash we get a guaranteed 3%, which for cash is not something I can get in a savings account. So it works out.
Any new employee that's hired, what is the benefit? It's a 401.
They all go into VEMRs.
Oh, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, the city plan is just going to slowly wind down.
Okay. Are there any stats on when that might be?
It's a long time away. We've got 3 active employees in the plan that have been with us a long time, just 3. And we've got 5 or 6 that are not retired yet, but they've got a vested benefit. So the plan will probably outlive me, but in 10 or 20 years, it's going to be a pretty darn small benefit. And the challenge might well be getting someone to administer it at that point, given there's going to be so few people getting a monthly check. So again, it doesn't keep me up at night. It's a solid plan. We've got about $4.1 million in cash today, and we pay about $400,000 a month in benefits. And more or less every year for the last 10 years, the amount we've earned in investments every year have covered the benefits people get. So our numbers are pretty solid there.
Just to add to that, we've been, I believe our annual appropriations, all funds is 220 or so, Tom?
210.
Okay, so, and we've been bouncing around in that, low 200s for quite a while. And that number came from the actuarial analysis, which then looked at the life cycle of the plan and then developed the 60/40 investment policy statement, sort of looking at the arc about what's going to happen over the life of it. So,
yeah, if Tom, I'm dealing with the visitors and the visitors plans and looking at OPEB every day. Recently, I am envious of how funded and how reasonable the funding plan is for VEMRs and the state of the city plan. So knowing not just enough about the pensions to be dangerous, I really appreciate your perspective on it and the fact that we're in much better shape than the state is with their retirement benefits.
Well, we'll give the state a loan, Mike, but it's going to be a steep interest rate.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, my question for you would be, if the state is continuing to make contributions in excess of their ADEC, and you're saying that the GASB standards say that we can't include those in the future projections of unfunded liabilities. So it's interesting to me that, the gap that we have in the state and the sort of gap on paper that's there in the city plans is parallel, but it's really on, a lot of it is on paper. The problem is a lot of the state gap isn't just on paper.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to do your own analysis. And the rules, I'm not going to criticize the GASB rules, but I will note that it seems odd to me that the rules for an open pension plan are no different than the rules for a closed plan. And I think at some level, if you're funding your deficit and you've done that for some years, getting some credit seems reasonable. I get that in the FY23 budget, the city council can say, no, we're not going to put that $210,000 into the plans. But the fact that we've done it so long, I feel like should give some level of comfort there. And we should get some accounting credit there.
Mike, I think you're being very kind to the state when you say that our plan is in better shape than the state's.
Oh, Mike, does that mean I have to go back to work full-time, get out of retirement, or what?
I'm happy to talk about pensions at length with you, Councilman Pelkey.
Okay, any other questions for Tom or Alina? Anyone? Hearing none, I'd like to thank Alina for joining us and giving us that presentation on the financial statements. Tom, thank you for your input as well. I appreciate that. So Alina, have a good night, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, so just a reminder, everyone should have a different login for the executive committee. So I would entertain a motion. I guess we're not going to adjourn, so we'll just click off, take a couple minutes to grab a water, and we'll get back on.
Need a motion to move into executive session.
Do that now. Thank you, Jim.
I move that the council move into executive session where premature disclosure of real estate purchase options could compromise the city or persons involved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those anyone opposed? Seeing none.
I move the council may enter executive session for purpose of discussing real estate purchase options.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss real estate options. All those in favor, say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Thank you all. So you will sign off and then click on to your next Zoom link, and we'll be back in a couple minutes.